Good afternoon. This is Jim Whitehead of All Power Group. And yeah, I know you say, hey, I thought you do animals. Well, I do. But I also have a area of my channel that has it where I can talk about things that I feel are not working real well for the American people, the world. What I would consider very, very important. And, sometimes you just can't sit and kind of put up with it. So and I had done this a long time ago where I started this part of my channel called Politics in the Middle. The point being that I'm trying to stay, in the middle, in the sense that I'm not going to just crazy get angry and say this person's bad, that person's bad, this is terrible. But there's recognition that things are not the way they should be or could be. So what I do with this series is I typically take 4 examples of things that just don't make any sense and that most people would feel that way. So starting off with number 1, changes in immigration policy. Certain shifts in immigration enforcement, border control, and the handling of asylum seeking have been criticized for their perceived lack of humanitarian consideration and logistical challenges. Critics have pointed to issues like family separation and the handling of migrant detention as examples of an illogical policy. Now, each of these 4, and I just have given you one, and I have my whole life, say certain things don't seem to make sense. They're what I would say illogical, where the common normal person would say, gee, this doesn't make sense. By the way, thank you for the person watching. I appreciate it. And, a lot of protesting going on today, which I really appreciate, and feel that we are a very good country, we're a good people, and we're really blessed. So when you get into some of the next 3 things I'm talking about, you'd say, yeah, that's not illogical. That's not logical. Okay, by the way, I'm not particularly picking on monkeys or chimpanzees, but it just seemed better than just showing people. Yes, my beginning slide, you might say, had what I kind of would see is politics that everybody is saying doesn't make any sense. Things are not right. Let's argue, let's fight, let's beat each other up. But again, I'm not, how would you say, trying to insult monkeys. Because monkeys are probably smarter than we are right now. Not always, but right now they're right at the top of the list. Okay. So we're going to move on to number 2. And, I could spend all day. There's not where you'd say, well, I only could find 4 things that were illogical. No, I could find 40 things. But obviously you don't have all day to spend talking with me, or am I talking to you? Okay, political and diplomatic ramifications, such as action would severely strain relations, and I'm talking about the point of trying to say, we want Greenland. Now, I'm going to go into the main points, but one that kind of like most humans would say, yeah, you're right. If you really wanted to be able to convince Denmark and the people in Greenland that we would be a wonderful country to become part of. We already have a military base there, so it isn't that, well, no, we don't know where Greenland is. We do. And we've been dealing with Greenland, I'm pretty sure since the 1930s. So it's not where like this is all of a sudden, wow, I never knew Greenland was there, so let's just have it part of the United States. But the point I'm actually making is, if let's say you have a neighbor and you want the neighbor to come over for dinner, and you say to your neighbor, you guys are jerks, or you're a jerk, and we're going to give you terrible food, or we're going to have it where you got to sit on the floor. That person would say, why would I want to come to dinner? And I know that's a very minimal, maybe a bad example, actually. But if Greenland, the people are saying, we've been with Denmark for, forever. And they, by the way, Denmark is a NATO member, of which we are too. I got to understand or mention that we're kind of not in the best graces right now. But any of the Greenland people would say, why? When I'm seeing people losing their jobs indiscriminately, just having people going in and saying, you're all fired. And I hope, and some of these people have been with for example, let's use HHS. They've been with that group, that organization, that part of the government for like over 20 plus years. And all of a sudden, one day, you're gone. Bye-bye. And what is even more illogical in general is they've had to hire, or I hear, especially with HHS, Health and Human Services, that they are going to need to hire some of those people back. So in other words, they just indiscriminately just fired everybody, or a certain number, and then realized, we made mistakes, and we're going to have to bring some of these people back. Duh. So, back to Greenland for a minute. Such an action, if we tried to take over Greenland, and, we're at a point where Greenland isn't going to go, with Denmark's, how would you say, yeah, I'm glad you're doing it great. You're going to go to work with the United States. They would definitely say, I'm seeing such bad things in the United States. Why would it be that they take us over and everything's going to be better? It just doesn't make any sense. It's, again, very illogical. Denmark is a long-standing ally. And I know currently the folks are saying, well, who cares? I care. A lot of Americans care. Because we have done our best. We're not perfect in the past. We've done our best with working with people, helping people. And, in general, it isn't where if you help someone, you have given up your soul. No, you've helped them. And they say, thank you. And you feel that is great. So this would also create tensions with other Arctic nations and European countries. The international backlash would be immense, potentially leading to sanctions. Yeah, we can afford sanctions now, right? You know, I'm 75, and yes, I do YouTube, but we get into where we have to worry about Social Security. I've paid into Social Security. This is not, as one of the famous people working on all these weird things, that it's a Ponzi scheme. I'm not in a Ponzi scheme. I'm in a payment system that I paid into and my employer paid into for me for probably 50, 60 years. So you can't just say, well, you know, that was just a gift to you, or just handing out free money. Some of that money is mine. And if you think about it, if, let's say, they took out of my pay, I haven't even really looked exactly because it might be scary, but if, let's say, they've taken out $40,000 in the last 40 years, let's say, did I get any interest on that? No. So if I had saved the 40,000, which I gotta admit, I'm not a great saver, so I'm not going to try to make it sound like, yeah, that's a great idea. But this money was put aside so that when I get old, and getting old is where you're old enough to do YouTube, or full time. But anyway, so leading to sanctions and other forms of diplomatic isolation. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's go a little further. Trade policies and tariffs. Boy, have tariffs been a bad word. And, you know, a lot of people don't understand tariffs. And the current administration used the fact that President McKinley in 1800s thought tariffs were great. So foolishly you sit there and go, well, if he thought it was great back then, it must be great now. Well, the problem with tariffs is it's a tax, and they lied to you. Oh, you're all gonna be wealthy. We're gonna have so much money, we're not gonna know what to do with it. Not me. So if you know, never look at a gift horse in the mouth. Sometimes that horse is going to turn around and kick you in the head. But the tariffs are basically where they say, okay, everything that comes in from a country is going to be, when it gets here, we're going to add, in essence, a tax to it or a tariff. So the car that you could have paid $25,000 might now be $30,000 because of a tariff that is artificial in so many words. Didn't cost them that extra $5,000 to build the car. And in fact, with the tariffs, it could make, because the auto companies, Ford and Chevys and so forth, they don't make a lot of money on each car. I think they make 3 to 5% from what I've read very recently. So you put this artificial tariff on it, it's not going to the people that built the car. It's just going to come out of my pocket and into the government coffers without any point of saying, well, this is where every additional money we collect in tariffs, we're going to share that with the U.S. citizens. No, 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 no. That isn't going to happen. Even if somebody walked in here right now and said, Jim, you're saying the wrong thing. Every dollar we collect in tariff is going to go back to you and all the people like you. Well, that's not true. So, you got to make sure you don't fall into this thing for these issues. The imposition of tariffs on goods from various countries, including allies, was seen by some economists as illogical. They argued that these policies disrupted global trade, harmed American businesses and consumers, and strained international relationships. Now, just a couple of very practical examples. Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Nintendo. They've had hand gaming devices for many, many, many years. And it's always neat to see a company that's still here and still coming out with new products. They have a device called the Switch. My stepson has one. And they announced just about 4 weeks ago, that they were going to be taking advance orders for the Switch 2. Now, you're not talking like a big dollar item. I'm not saying everybody can afford it, but it's where, a lot of people were already sending money in to say, hey, I want to get it as quickly as possible. Well, late yesterday afternoon, Nintendo said, we're canceling the Switch 2. And we're going to be sending the money back to those, of course, that sent in money to try to get the first one out of the box. Now that hurts Nintendo, and it hurts us. Maybe because the screen was going to get bigger, it was going to have more storage, that it was going to be a little higher resolution. I think it was going to be high definition. And they decided not to do it. And the sad part, this is going to be repeated over and over and over. And this is the illogical nature of where, they think, cutting all this out, no big deal. They don't look at all the different companies that can be negatively affected by this. And that affects everybody. There was an electric car company, Status. I'm not sure if I said the name right. But they're laying off about 900 to 1,000 people because they know damn well that, A, they're not going to sell as many EVs because they're going to be more expensive. So they don't have to make as many. So they don't need as many people. I mean, the process of what happens when this has been put into effect is going to happen. And it is illogical because I see no benefit to anybody where they have to lay people off and produce less cars. And there's so much that goes into a car that a lot of different companies benefit. Steering wheels, gas pedals. I mean, I can go on and on and on. I shouldn't say gas pedals on an EV. I get it. I know you were going to pick me up on that. But anyway, that's the problem. All right. Here's another one that I really felt so bad about, attempting with the U.S. the takeover of the Panama Canal. It's profoundly illogical. It is an illogical action, primarily due to severe political, diplomatic repercussions it would trigger. Now, the Panama Canal, a lot of people died when they were building it, yellow fever, and they've had to do some work on it because, again, remember at the time they said, well, we only need it so wide, and that was X number of years ago. The ships that want to try to go from the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean as a quick shot, some of them can't even go through the Panama Canal. So, and they've expanded somewhat here and there, but bottom line, it isn't even where you'd say, wow, this is a good deal. I'm glad we took it over. The Panama Canal is a symbol of Panamanian national sovereignty, and any forceful attempt to seize control would be viewed as a blatant act of aggression, severely damaging U.S. relations with Latin America and the broader international community. It would also undermine decades of work to establish positive relations with Panama since the treaty signed by the U.S. and Panama. They gave the canal back to Panama. That it was Jimmy Carter, President Carter, God rest his soul. Furthermore, it would give other nations that are rivals to the U.S., and there's a lot that are out there, and there's even more now, thank you, administration, it will give them political ammo to use against us. In essence, it would create far more problems than it would potentially solve, and would be a move against international law. But I guess, it's kind of like we all get into, oh, well, we don't care. I have come to the end. I'm glad for your sake I've come to the end, but I really enjoy these. And sometimes, like with we've got people protesting. I'm in Naples, which is southwest Florida, and there's a protest in Fort Myers, which is a little bit north of here. Yes, I'm not there, but I'm doing, I don't want to say the next best thing, but my putting together a non-animal politics in the middle presentation helps us all feel a little bit better and maybe say that we're going in the right direction. Anyway, just keep trying and recognize that we're a good people, we're a good country, and we will get through this. But we all have to work together. So thank you for being here, and let's hope for the very, very best. And thank you again.